This is Andrea Mitchell, and I'm here reporting live on opening day of the peace negotiations taking place at Versailles. Interestingly, today, January 18th, is the anniversary of that day in 1871 when the German Empire was proclaimed by Bismarck right here at Versailles. Many have argued that the settlement of that conflict actually planted the seeds for the devastating war that Europe has just witnessed. I'm standing just outside the meeting hall and I'm hoping to talk with some of the delegates as they make their way into the building. I see President Woodrow Wilson making his way toward me. President Wilson, do you think these treaty negotiations can produce an agreement that will truly make peace with Germany?
Do not think of this treaty of peace as merely a settlement with Germany. It is that, but the treaty is so much more than that. It is not merely a settlement with Germany. It is a readjustment of those great injustices which underline the whole structure of European and Asiatic society.
What do you think is going to be the most essential part of the treaty negotiations?
At the front of this great treaty is put the Covenant of the League of Nations. There is only one power to put behind the liberation of mankind, and that is the power of mankind. It is the power of the united moral forces of the world, and the Covenant of the League of Nations, the moral forces of the world, are mobilized.
I hope your fellow delegates share your optimism. Thank you for your time, Mr. President. Here comes the British Prime Minister, David Lloyd George. Prime Minister, would you mind taking a moment to answer a few questions? What concerns do you have going into these negotiations?
When nations are exhausted by wars in which they have put forth all their strength and which leave them tired, bleeding, and broken, it is not difficult to patch up a peace that might last till the generation which experienced the horrors of war had passed away. What is difficult, however, is to draw up a peace which will not provoke a fresh struggle when those who had practically experience of what war means have passed away. History has proved that a peace which had been hailed by a victorious nation as a triumph of diplomatic skill and statesmanship, even of moderation in the long run, had proved itself to be short-sighted and charged with danger to the victor.
So you don't share the French Prime Minister's desire to impose a harsh settlement on the Germans?
You may strip Germany of her colonies, reduce her armaments to a mere police force, and her navy to that of a fifth-rate power. All the same, she feels she has been unjustly treated in the peace of 1919. She will find means of exacting retribution on her conquerors. I would therefore put it in the forefront of the peace that once she accepts our terms, we will do everything possible to enable the German people to get up their legs again. We cannot both cripple her and expect her to pay.
Thank you for your time, Prime Minister George. Clearly, these delegates to these negotiations have very different ideas about how this peace treaty should take shape. This is surely a situation that bears watching. Back to you, Brian. Oh look, I see the French delegate approaching the hall. Prime Minister Clemenceau, may I have a moment of your time? Prime Minister Clemenceau, what do you hope to accomplish during these negotiations?
We shall insist on the imposition of penalties on the authors of the abominable crimes committed during the war.
So you will seek to punish the Germans to the fullest extent possible?
Has anyone any question regarding to this? If not, I would again remind you that every delegation should devote itself to the study of this first question, which has been made the subject of reports by eminent jurists, and a report which has been sent to the delegates entitled An Inquiry into the Criminal Responsibility of Emperor William II.
So clearly your response is a resounding yes. Thank you for your time, Prime Minister.